Really me doing this tonight. Why we're all here, of course. Welcome the crowd, excited about the long-anticipated and well-received book by the legendary John Fogerty, Fortunate Son. The book has been getting great reviews. If you'd like to hear a few, I know I would. Washington Post, Fogerty is a natural storyteller. Houston Press, throughout the book, Fogerty writes with a style as comfortable as one of his trademark flannel shirts. Couldn't have said it better myself. Publishers Weekly, it is fitting that songwriting is the main theme of Fogerty's biography, which is penned with the same depth of feeling as his music. So, before I introduce John, if you folks don't mind, I'd like to give a brief, I'll try to make it brief if you can think Thorogood can make it brief. My first association with John goes back over 30 years. That's nice. That's nice. It was in the 80s, and a business associate of mine said they had a phone number for one Bob Fogerty. And at the time, John was pretty much like the Howard Hughes of rock and roll. No one knew where he was. No one knew what he was doing. Just disappeared for some reason. I don't think he intended to do that, but that's the way it was. So I got this number for a Bob Fogerty, and I said, well, I'll give it a call. I was in the San Francisco area. So I gave it a call, phone rings, and I hear the phone, I heard this voice go, this high voice go, hello? I go, I'm calling for John Fogerty. This is John. Hamana, 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 hamana. So it's really him. And I said, well, I don't know if you know me. My name is George Thorogood. And he stops me and he goes, George Thorogood, the man who broke the color line in blues, the white man that made it in the blues. So I said, man, I'm in, baby. I'm in. So we got to talking, and we found out we have a mutual love of music and baseball. So he invited me to a baseball game. He picked me up at 6:30 at night and dropped me off at 6:30 in the morning. No lie. It was love at first sight. Love at first sight. We chatted all night. We got to talking, and I couldn't believe it. I said, this is the man, Walter Cronkite can't get close to this guy. And here I am with him. So I told a few people. Actually, I told a lot of people. Anyway, I told people from my record company at the time, My America, and they flipped out, and they said, why don't you ask him to produce you? And I said, I just met the man. I can produce me. He said, what do you got to lose? Just try. I said, well, me being a company man. I got to John again, and we went to a ball game, and I played him some of my music, which he liked and appreciated, and said, John, did you ever consider producing someone? Would you produce me? And he said, well, George, I don't do that kind of thing. I was asked to do that by Rick Nelson, and I decided not to. I went, Rick Nelson. Okay, you passed on that. So I let it go. Once again, I went back to the company. I said, he said no. He was very gracious, real gentleman. And they said, well, next time you see him, just ask him one more time. They kept bugging me. And I said, man, I don't want to bug the cat. I'm fortunate. I'm a fortunate son to know the man. So I get with him again. And you're going to love this punchline. I'll get to it. And we sat there, and I said, John, I know I brought this up once before about producing me. Would you give it any second thought? He went like this. He put his hand on my hand, and he looked me in the eye, and this is what he said. George, can't we just be friends? So I thought to myself, this man wants to be your friend. That's worth more than 10 goddamn gold records. Right there. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you, not my producer, my friend, John Fogerty.
George, good to see you again,
Thank
friend.
You. Friend.
Oh, and thank you for doing this. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Well, I was going to say that there was a lot of people would like to have this spot that I'm sitting in. John could have had Paul McCartney, Bob Dylan, but the Fogertys chose me. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll bet there's a lot of people I know out there, actually, that I've seen over the years. Yeah, all right. I was hoping I'd see familiar faces. It's awesome. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I'm looking around. All right, man. Love you too. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I think that's something I'd really like to say before we get started. I really do appreciate you guys, the fans. I know I've been a little, what's the word? A little bit hard to figure out over the years. But I'm certainly here now, and as you probably have figured out, I'm a really happy guy these days. Life is good. I even have a hat that says life is good. With a baseball on it, believe it or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, the Mets are up like 10 million to 2, so George is really happy. Anyway, so I guess we'll kind of roll on into this thing and
I would like to
see
start
where
with
we
this.
go.
Something that's been on my mind was on my mind even long before I met you, and I brought this up when I did meet you, and you agreed with me right away, and I like that. But I always thought, and it came up in your book, which thrilled me, was when I first met you. I thought, you know, when I listen to rock and roll, and I listen to him, I go, this man comes from Northern California. He plays about Louisiana swamp, Mississippi swamp. This guy's the Stephen Foster of rock and roll. He writes like Stephen Foster. He never made it farther south than Pittsburgh. When I brought that up to John, John was great, and he said, yeah, that's right. And he is. So I'd like you.
Well, there's a little more to the story, and I think back in the days of CCR, I'm not sure I always had Stephen right at the front of my mind. You know how these things are, but there's a story I actually start the book with to tantalize you a little, tease you, but it is really true. When I was a kid, 3 years old, etc., my mom was a teacher at a local nursery school. You look a little like Howard Stern. Do you know that? I can't sign that. I don't know what. If you want to accept that, George? It might be a summons, the way things have been going lately. Thank you for that. Oh, all right. I got it now.
All right.
Thank you so much. Am I supposed to keep this? All right. I got it. I'll take good care of it. It might be a script. I'm not quite sure what that. And by the way, all you guys that have a tape for me, just bring it on up. That's all right. Wow. Anyway, oh yeah, my mother was one of the teachers, which really means mom, at this little nursery school in El Cerrito. And when I was about 3.5 years old, she brought me home one day after nursery school and sat me down and handed me a little record and explained to me that this was a gift for me. I was going to be owning this. So she puts on the little record, and one side is Oh Susanna, and the other side is Camptown Races, Doo-Dah, Doo-Dah, that song. And she explains to me that Stephen Foster wrote those songs. And okay, I just kind of took that in. In the years since, though, I've really wondered about why she did that. I mean, was there something she knew? It's so weird. It really is. It's odd, unusual for a parent to hand you a song or teach you a new song and then tell you about the songwriter, right? I mean, when you learn Jingle Bells or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or even Jailhouse Rock, somebody doesn't say, and that was written by, But my mom did that to me, and so literally for the rest of my life, as I would hear a song that was pointed out to me was by Stephen Foster, I would certainly take note of it. There did seem to be a certain place, a charm, a kind of, years later we called this Americana, but there was no name for it, even in the 60s when I was starting to really make noise. But I followed Stephen Foster without ever really learning a lot about his life. I've learned a lot more since. There's a couple of parallels, of course. He was actually not from the South. He was from Pittsburgh. And the other thing we had in common was he got, let's say, finagled out of his royalties. became an alcoholic. But the part where it changes, he died really young. And I'm hoping to escape that fate. But anyhow, so that's the Stephen Foster connection.
Well, you did a great job. Right. You did a great job. Really.
By the way, something I didn't know until much, much later, Stephen was America's first songwriter. You know, in other words, this guy actually set out to earn a living writing songs, and I'm sure his parents said, "Why don't you get a real job?" You know.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great stuff. Everybody wants to know about that. John Fogerty and Stephen Foster said in the same breath. I would like to know, and I'm sure everybody else would, about John's childhood at Putah Creek, because that has a great story behind it and a great song.
Well, yeah, when probably I was still about that age, my parents would go to this wild, free-running creek up in Northern California, kind of on the way to Sacramento, a little town called Winters. It's Putah Creek, as you have said. Later, they dammed that up and made Lake Berryessa out of it. But this was our family vacations when I was 4 and younger and a little older, meaning that would be about 1949. We always stayed in this same little cabin, and I mean, it was smaller than this stage. There was a little front room that had a green screen door, and then a back room where there was a couple of beds, I guess. My family wasn't quite as big as it got to be when I had 4 brothers. But it was a really idyllic place. That place, matter of fact. I don't know if y'all can see. Here's Johnny. I love that place, though. I learned to swim there. I actually float on my back. Learned to look for pollywogs under the water. There was right about here, right about where we're looking from, there was a big tree with a rope hanging off the branch. You could, of course, swing out, land in the creek. And we rented this cabin from a really old guy who was about 75 years old. To me at that age, very tall and skinny. His name was Cody. And I was told he was a direct descendant of Buffalo Bill Cody, which made him, of course, Old Cody Jr.
Talk about Americana.
Yeah. And so when it came time to me, and there's another little part of that story, of course. When I was about 8 years old, I was sitting at the little soda fountain in the pharmacy that was right up at the end of my street. Of course, you could get a sandwich, potato chips, I think you could get a cherry cola, those kind of things. One of the other things you could get was a Green River. And basically it was this green syrup stuff that tasted vaguely like lime, I remember. And they'd put fizz water in it, maybe some ice, and in a little kind of paper cup in a steel holder, I think it was.
So you not only wrote about it, you drank it.
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
But I was young then.
Okay.
I didn't. Yeah. Anyhow, I guess I was I know I was 8 years old, and I was looking at the label, which it said Green River, and then it had kind of a stylized drawing of a creek, flowing towards you, and then the banks were very high, like that, on both sides of this creek, and I think there was some sort of a sunset going on. Later, it always reminded me of Sun Records. But I filed that away. I don't know why. But, I mean, I liked music. I sure wasn't playing any instruments. But I believe I was already toying around with songwriting, and I looked at that Green River and said, I got to remember that. I'll save that.
It's like a good thing you paid attention.
Yeah, and then a little later, of course, ended up putting my childhood together with that title and wrote a song called Green River.
All right.
I think we're going to play that for you right now.
I sure hope so.
Remember things I don't know.
What'd you do that for?
And by the way, that's a real tape recorder, so you heard that funny little boom at the end that we used to hear all the time. Interesting.
I always thought when you always cut your songs off too short. Always.
Yeah. Well, of course, and there's another thing, of course, you heard, those of you who are of a certain vintage, you recognize my absolute love of Sun Records and the rockabilly sound and all that. And I put, as much of that as I could on that song right there. And I was trying to remember something. At the time, at least, that was my favorite song so far, that album and that song. I really thought that was kind of right in the center of what I really love.
Well, you certainly don't write them like that anymore. And they never will.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I better get busy.
So, having said that, things get a little more serious in John's life. I'm going to move on to when he was drafted and what that meant to him. And I think you got a big influence when you're in the Army by writing a song called Porterville, which sure everybody would like to know about. Yeah,
of course, Vietnam happened to people of a certain age back in the 60s and 70s. I dare say most people my age, it was mostly guys at that time. And there was a draft. Things started heating up. At first it was just sort of a rumor, and it sounds familiar, doesn't it? And then General Hershey was this old guy that was in charge of the draft board and all that. One day they announced there was going to be a draft and these, lottery balls and all that, and they were going to pick numbers, and you would find out that you were drafted and going to probably go to Vietnam. So eventually I was drafted in 1966, and when I managed to get myself in an Army Reserve unit, which meant, cross your fingers, it meant I probably wasn't going to go to Vietnam if I was lucky. It would be rare for an Army Reserve unit in those days to go off overseas. So they had drafted, millions of guys that were all mobilized in the military. And I dare say at some points in that war, they didn't know what to do with us if we weren't in the jungle. So I landed at 3 places on my active duty. It was Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fort Knox, Kentucky. I actually saw Elvis Presley, 58, on the wall in one of the barracks. And then Fort Lee, Virginia. And I think Fort Lee, Virginia is where this mostly occurred. There was a gigantic asphalt square. They called it a parade field. And there'd be like 1,000 of us, several hundred anyway, marching. And, this is the summertime, getting to be April, May, June, July. Did I say it was a mile square? And it was really hot. I mean, just in the air, it was like 115 degrees. So coming off of that, surface, it was like 130. And you're in full fatigues, and you got boots and all that. You got your rifle. And so we'd all be marching just endlessly. You could go a mile that way, then they go, all right, turn left. And we all, do that thing.
You had to trade in your Beetle boots for marching boots.
Something like that.
That must have been a rough change.
What's his name? He could write a good song about that. Not Jesse Belvin. Who am I thinking of? Juanita. It's too late. And going to hang up my rock and roll shoes.
There you go.
Well, they got, all right. Anyway, so marching along, I began to hallucinate. And so, of course, in the unlike the boots I'm wearing, in the military, they want your boots spit shine, like glass. You're supposed to be able to see your own face in them. And so I'd be marching along, and in my mind, not down there, I'd see a smudge on the toe of my boot. So I'm thinking, right? You just kind of mindlessly with all these other people, and I'd go to polish it, but that little sucker would move over and go, right? And I'm marching along, and I'd try to polish it and move back, right? And I was delirious, obviously. I think everybody there was. Well, eventually, I went from that into relating a story or hearing a story. And this story was about somebody in a small town, kind of me, somebody whose father had had a hard time, and as I dreamed or whatever that was with this story more, they came and took the father away, and all the townsfolk were mad at the father, so they were still mad at the kid, and the kid felt he didn't do the sin, but he was the next of kin, that sort of thing. And eventually, even though I didn't have the title of the song, that song that I began while I think had discovered, what do they call it, transcendental meditation, I brought that home, and it became the song Porterville, which is on the first Creedence album.
Wow.
In other words, I can thank the Army for showing me how to write a song.
Well, I tell you, I watch, like you, I'm a sci-fi freak of movies, and one of my favorites is The Thing.
Yeah,
the movie The Thing.
me too.
Yeah, that comes from outer space. And believe it or not, every time I watch that movie, and I watch it as often as I can, and I think of you because there's a character in the movie named General Fogerty. And every time I watch it, I think of you.
Are you speaking of the movie The Thing?
Yeah, James Arness and Kenneth Tobey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was originally The Thing from Another World.
On TV, you don't always, in the old days anyway, they'd cut up the film so much, a lot of pieces were missing. I don't know that I saw that movie in the theaters. I was pretty young, but I saw it on TV like 200 times.
Well, that's what they do. They keep reporting back and saying whatever order.
There's this guy,
Yes, Fogerty to Fogerty back.
Fogerty,
and Fogerty, it's you.
yeah.
I'm going, oh, okay, I'm going to go put on, bootleg and all that. It distracts me. Did you know that? That guy was
I remember that, sure.
Yeah. That was pretty good. That was
funny you
cool.
Didn't think of Fatso Fogerty with Jackie Gleason.
See, you're everywhere, man. We can't get away from you. And now we're moving into the big one. The big one's on everybody's mind. And all I got to say is this, and we'll let John take it. Proud Mary.
All right. Well, actually, in some ways, I have the military to thank for this too. Of course, by now. We had recorded Susie Q, first as just a tape. It wasn't a real record. There was an underground radio FM station, the first in the whole world, with Tom Donahue at the helm. He was a famous DJ in the 60s. His call letters were KMPX. Anyway, it was kind of a hippie thing. Okay, they played everything. So we recorded Susie Q as a tape. They just go over and visit the station and give them a tape because they were already doing that sort of thing. The famous Janis Joplin tape of Hesitation Blues was sort of a staple already, and there was no record of it. It was just something they played. So we prepared Susie Q as a tape, and lo and behold, they started playing it, and we had gone ahead and gotten to record the album that Susie Q is on, and that was eminently coming out. And now I was starting to get ready for the next thing, right? And so I'm working on music for what I think will be the next album, and hopefully maybe find a good song or two. Hadn't really hit the big time yet, though. The best things I had written so far were the things on the first album, which are, there's none of my songs are as good as Susie Q or I Put a Spell on You. So this is somewhere around June of 1968. And I had already been working on trying to get out of the Army because it really conflicted with my role as a rock and roll guy in a band, especially appearance-wise. And I had gone through all kinds of avenues and I finally had written to my congressman, folks, that stuff works. Do it. This was a guy named Jerome Waldy, and he started kicking the tires around the Army, and they got a little nervous. And so anyhow, one day there's this official-looking envelope on the stairs to my apartment building, but there's like 4 apartments in the building. I look close, and there's a official-looking kind of seal on it. I go, that ain't for me. I don't know anybody like that. But about 3 days, I stepped over this thing, and it was still there. And finally, I looked down close, and it's got my name on it. In fact, it says, Private John Fogerty. Whoa! I opened that thing up. It's a thing like your high school diploma. and it's my honorable discharge from the Army. And that's like the biggest day of my life so far. Wow, okay. So I did a little cartwheel right there on the little bit of grass in front of the building, ran inside and picked up my Rickenbacker guitar unplugged in, just, alone, and started strumming these chords I'd been messing with that were kind of like Beethoven's Fifth, but not exactly. And I started strumming and getting more and more excited. That first line came, left a good job in the city, and suddenly I realized after a few minutes I'm touching on the Mississippi River and all these, what do you call those? Impulses, things that I've, inputs, whatever, data, I don't know, things I've had happen over my life that I've paid attention to are suddenly all in my, awake mind, right at the front there. I'm going, wow, this is really cool. So, honey, where's my dear wife? I've forgotten something that I should have brought down here. Nobody reminded me. There it is. Well, a little later, because I messed up, you'll see the actual in-person. It's in that little rollie that I bring, and it's backstage. Anyhow, I had been collecting song titles in this little book since about the fall of the year before, 67. And so now I'm really turned on, and it's the first time I ever used the book in that manner. I'm into this song, the Mississippi. There's a riverboat in it. I open my book. I look at the very first page, first entry. And wow, this is about a riverboat named Proud Mary. Okay. So now I'm into the whole thing with rolling on the river. Well, to kind of make a very long story a little shorter at least, I get to where it's just, almost completed, pretty much completed. I do it over and over and over, like 5 times. I always do that. And then finally I had most of the words written down on a piece of paper, and I'm holding that thing. I said, man, this is really, really good, right? I mean, that was the first time in my life I ever said that. I said, this is like a standard, which is a word we used to say. Now we say classic, right? My mom, I had grown up with my mom talking about Hoagie Carmichael and Irving Berlin, and I knew people like Lieber and Stoller, and of course Lennon and McCartney. The greats, the great ones up there that had, and all their songs.
There only were greats then.
Huh?
There only were greats then.
Yeah, well, right, and well, the only ones. Thank you. The only ones we knew about. Thank you, honey. Were the ones that made it through, that are the big songs like Old Rockin' Chair and Buttermilk Sky and White Christmas, that stuff like that. Here, I'm going to digress for a second here and pull out this shameless prop and show you, yes indeed. I had come home from the store that day. The very first thing on the first page, I wrote, what's the word? When you want to have you're optimistically, I wrote song titles, and then the rest was blank. And a few days later, I had the phrase Proud Mary come into my head. What does that mean, Proud Mary? I had no clue what it meant, but it's absolutely, as you can see, the very first entry in my little collector's book. I had wanted you to see that because that was kind of when I got organized, you might say. I mean, it was an instinct that I knew I should do that. And there it was in the midst of this, what do you call that? I mean, there's my discharge. I'm happy. I get some chords going. I start to write what is touching on stuff that's really cool instead of, Betty Lou, why are you so mad at me? I feel so bad. I'm sad. Oh, I'm waiting for June and the moon, all that teenage stuff. I had written hundreds of those, dozens of those as a kid, and I finally didn't want to do that anymore because it just seemed sort of silly. Right? Yeah. And so this thing seemed to be touching on stuff that was, at least to me, was really nostalgic feeling and warm and fuzzy and important and in a sense kind of historical, meaning that like the bedrock of America. Stuff I really loved anyway. So I'm standing there and I'm almost shaking. I mean, I would say I was trembling at least. This is really great. And there was not another soul in the whole world knew about that song except me, and I was thoroughly convinced that I had entered, at least with this song, entered into that land where the great ones are.
Well, it was a great one. It still is. It always will be. Always will be. You would like to...
Luckily, it was true, but when you're young, you're pretty precocious.
When you like to know that myself and two others from Delaware, we ran away from home for the first time and jumped in a car and we were on our way to California, and we had no money. We had just clothes on our back. We were sick of the conservative life where we lived, and we were looking for something. And they said, well, we have no money, and we have little gasoline. How are we going to make it without food? I swear to God, we had this song on the radio that inspired us, and we actually started heading like this way down through the South, because there was a line in the song said, people on the river are happy to give. And we really believed that. Honestly, we believed that. We were going, listen, people on the, let's get to the river. It was like a religious thing telling us, and we swore by it, and it kept us going day by day, and said, well, if we get really down and out, and there will be people in this country that will take care of us. And lo and behold, we got stranded somewhere in the Ozarks, in somewhere in like southern Missouri, right? And we really literally, we found these people who were like, they weren't city people. And they were like living out in the real country people. And they gave us everything. Free gas, they gave us food, they gave us Slim Jims, gave us a couple spare tires. And I told my buddy, see, the people on the river, proud to give. This man knows what he's talking about. He was a prophet.
I'm glad that's what you found, man. What a country. What a country.
Yeah, it is. I lived it. I went for it, When you're a kid, you hear things like that, beautiful dreaming, your songs, things. You're a kid, you believe it. You hear it and you really believe it. You say, wow, man, don't step on my blue suede shoes. I was saying, where is this green river? I got to get there. Because you believe in it.
Can I be your vice president?
Excuse me?
You'll be the man and I'll be the vice president. Because I'll get to have all the fun, and you got to get up there and say stuff like that.
Okay. Well, the one this is the one. Everybody will agree this is the one that it's number one on the list for everybody. Everybody plays it. Everybody loves it. You hear it every day. If I could play it, I would play it. But all the biggies play this. It's the name of the book, Fortunate Son.
Okay. Well, I must say, I can say in 2 or 3 lines and try and get here really quick. I'm thankful for my upbringing and the way my parents felt about the world. They had come from Montana, but certainly when they came to California in the 30s, there was a big migration coming to California from all kinds of places, a lot of it from the South and the Dust Bowl. Sometimes referred to as the Okies and other things. Grape Syrah is a really cool story about that. And I was made to feel that we were part of the people. And my mom certainly played a lot of Pete Seeger, who was very important in our household, and a lot of folk music in general. And this is way before 1958. I'm talking 1950. I remember going around in our first house, my first house. I must have been 4 or 5, and I'm walking around the house singing, Sal got the measles and she died in the spring. I think that's Burl Ives, but, and there was certainly a thread philosophically and politically among all these people, all these artists, that I just absorbed. Pete Seeger being probably the coolest, just because he was such a spokesman and such a wonderful man, and he lived his life. I mean, if there was such a thing as TMZ, they could have followed him around night and day, and they never would have got nothing, because he was just a good guy, right? And yet he had things that he believed, and by golly, I ended up believing all that too. And so, of course, I'd been in the military, and now I had been released, but the Vietnam War was really raging by this time. It was instead of going down, it was going up. It was getting more and more so. And I was getting more and more angry as you'd see things on TV. There'd be some senator whose kid avoided the military by doing some kind of penance or something, or planting a tree somewhere. You'd hear about some other rich guy that the kid was drafted, but then got some cushy job in an office. I mean, it just pretty soon you start to see the message is if you're rich, you're going to avoid any scrapes over there, and if you're poor, you're probably going to the jungle. Mm-hmm. That really pissed me off because I don't know about other ages, other generations, other wars. Of course, I'd grown up with World War II. Historically in Korea, and seen a lot of those great movies when I was 10 years old, and I'm for all of that stuff. It just seemed that looked different to me than what this looked like. You guys all know this stuff, of course, but I got more and more mad about the fact that people would get drafted and really didn't have a shot like the privileged people. They were going to go straight to the jungle, and no one was looking out for them. And this was well before people started coming back when I got really pissed off. But anyway, I had the idea for a song. I started showing the band the music for it, because that's usually how this worked. I would rehearse the band with the band music, meaning the bass, drums, and two guitars part. And I knew it was a pretty cool song. I hadn't written it yet. And so I began to sense that it was about time to go into the studio and record this. And so, I started, John, you got to write the song now. And this is one of those ones I actually took my pad, went in, sat on the bed, the edge of the bed, and 20 minutes later I came out of the bedroom and I had that song. That's never happened quite like that. It was, and I had no idea. I didn't have the line about, some folks are born, some folks are born, it's setting up sort of a dominoes of ideas, And I also didn't have, it ain't me. I didn't have that when I walked into the bedroom, but when I came out, it had all happened. About 20 minutes, certainly the shortest time it ever took me.
Sometimes the best ones come quickly.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes the best ones come. There's those fellas that I told you I ran away with. One of those guys that I took off to California and told the Proud Mary story. He came to me and was very close to me, and he was really locked into the politics and the unfairness of the mid and late 60s, and what he thought was, and that politics in those days, if you were around then, 68, 69, were kind of hairy. You're either on one side or you're on the other. There was no in between. Right. And he came to me and he said, man, there's a song, this guy wrote my life story. And he said, I ain't no millionaire son. You gotta hear this song. He said, it's the rock anthem of the 60s. You gotta hear it. This isn't rock and roll. This is a social statement. So when I heard it was your song, Fortunate Son. Awesome. It stands up today. Good for you.
I'm gonna play it.
Okay.
And when the band
Pretty damn
Wait a
good
minute.
band right there, right?
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why in the world do you cut that song off? What's the matter with you?
Oh, sorry.
What's the matter with
the
you?
DJ and me.
You cut that thing off.
Was there some little thing right at the end that...
Well, I listen to that song, and Fortunate Son, no matter when I hear it, I heard it tonight, it's the same feeling I get every time I hear it. God, do I hate you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know.
I mean that with all due respect.
I got that.
Let's check this out here, moving on to
Sometimes I felt that way about Booker T and the MGs.
that. Yeah.
Or some of the, great guitar players that I'll see. And
Yeah.
I don't quite, but it is funny what you say. I kind of, Brad Paisley, how could I hate that guy? It's just more like...
Yeah, right. I get over it after the song's over. I get over it. I work it out of my system. I got therapy and all that kind of thing, and it helped me out with that. So with your band, it was, heavy duty right up there, if not the top American band of their time or any time, but with Booker T and the MGs and the Beach Boys or anybody else in this country. Creedence Clearwater, fantastic name. And then, unfortunately, it kind of hit us hard when the Beatles broke up, and then we heard Creedence broke up. We said, wait a minute, stop, you can't be doing this to us. Because remember, we were just kids then, the stuff we listened to.
Yeah.
And I think you put together a song about that experience with your band breaking up.
Yeah, and I wonder if I shouldn't just kind of tell a quick thread of the whole thing with the band, because I know, well, stop me if you've heard this one. Of course, in the book, it's really, what's the word, fleshed out, and I'm pretty thorough about all the things you may have wondered about for a long time, I suppose. And how can I say it? I tell a lot of stuff about myself that's I'm not proud of, for sure, and there's stuff that's embarrassing, and so, put it this way, I'm only going to write one book. This is the book. And I wanted to be able to look back in 25 years from now and go, well, yeah, it's all there. You didn't sugarcoat, you didn't change yourself to make you look good or, all that kind of stuff. Because at my age, you can get away with anything. It's more like it's been bandied about for so long, and a lot of people really do care, right? Besides my relatives, and it just seemed that I was sort of duty bound to just really be clear and honest and straight about it. Because I happen to have lived it, but I don't know, in a strange way, it's almost like about somebody else. And I wanted it to be the book to be a good representation of what really did happen, so that everyone could, like I say, there's parts of it that I'm not the best human being in the world, but that's all part of it. So anyway, there's a few things, and now it's suddenly going to sound like I'm out of context, but I think you'll get it once I finish this little episode here. Of course, I'd known my brother all my life, Tom, and we loved music as kids. We starting at a certain age, especially teenage and British invasion rock and roll, we were starting to really revel in it. I remember being in the car when Will I Be Loved by the Everly Brothers came on. With that cool guitar, and we looking at each other like, I just died and went to heaven. What is that? And we did that a lot. I remember a lot of times the Gollywogs driving home from, 4 hour away from our home city, like way up in Marysville, someplace like that in Northern California, in the middle of the night listening to Wolfman Jack, because it was so inspirational, and he played the coolest stuff. It was always like you were hearing some special dimension of music that wasn't anywhere else. Anyway, so I'd known Tom all my life. Doug and Stu I met in junior high, and we formed the Blue Velvets, of course. And it was sort of a loose thing. We'd talk once in a while about growing up and and making it in the world of music. You know, we actually did back up a singer when we were 14, a singer named James Powell that made an R&B record called Beverly Angel. And it actually got played on our local rhythm and blues station for a while. So at a very young age, we'd already had some, taste of success. But, we'd be in a band and then we'd not be in a band. Stu went off to college. He'd say stuff to me like, well, music isn't my whole life, To me, it was, actually. And I was always really paying attention to everything that happened around me. Like, if I got to be in a real recording studio, I'd stay there and ask every question I could think to ask. And so when I got off active duty in 1967, it was the Summer of Love in San Francisco, right where I was, where we were. And we really vowed to make a go of it, One of the things we committed ourselves to was getting better. Basically, before I went on active duty, we played a few places, certainly the Monkey Inn in Berkeley, a little club we got a regular spot at. And Tom couldn't even play guitar when we started. He would just play tambourine. And I remember a lot of drunken college students at this place. One night, some guy standing right in front of Tom, it was a little stage and he's looking up.
I know that guy. I've seen that guy at my gigs.
Well, Tom's playing tambourine, right? Yeah. It might have been you.
Yeah, right.
Well,
He
anyway, this guy, in his drunken haze, he looks up and goes, "You're useless," to Tom, because all he's doing is playing tambourine, right? And so we kept that as a badge of honor, that we could literally stand there playing rock and roll and be useless.
Yes.
It was actually
somebody's paying attention, though. At least they're watching you.
It was kind of cool. And so I set about, Tom played kind of chord banging piano a little bit, like "Do You Want to Dance" and "In the Still of the Night," those kind of songs. But and a chord or two on the guitar. But I set about really having him learn. And it was at that same place I kind of switched Stu over to playing bass. And it was, baby steps at first, but we were moving. So when I got off active duty and we had committed ourselves to really making a go of it, we really weren't that great. We weren't a band that could get up there following some real rock and roll band like the Airplane or, the Stones or whatever. We didn't make enough noise. We weren't that sure of ourselves. And we would go to this place out in the country that Doug and Stu lived at called the Shire. We rehearsed every single day. And we started talking about, well, we'll all write songs together and, and we're a democracy and, we'll make every decision together. One thing we did say to ourselves was that it would take a vote of all four of us for anything to occur, right? So fast forward a little bit further, we make Susie Q, which was pretty much my direction, my arrangement. And I started to write songs, which became the first album. And, the song Porterville actually came out with a weird songwriting credit. T. Spice Bush Swallowtail. And that was a name.
We all know who that is.
Yeah. That was going to be our songwriting nom de plume for these songs we were going to all write together. But of course, Porterville and The Other Side, I wrote and gave it to the band, you might say. Then we would talk after we had rehearsed, we'd go away back to our families for a little while. Then we'd come back out at night once in a while, basically smoke pot, and talk about all these happy things we were going to do. And if you could picture 4 21-year-old kids talking about conquering the world, loaded, stoned on marijuana, it would really make a funny movie. And so we talked about these things, and this was our dream. And then the next day we'd come back and practice, right? Trying to get better every day. And so I would say to the guys, well, does anybody have anything? And there'd be sort of this nervous, and look at your toes. Well, I got one, I'd say. And I'd start showing them a song. And then, a few days later, maybe the next week, we'd have another pot-smoking session. And talk about all this stuff we were going to do. That's actually, it was during one of those where we came up with tea, spice bush, swallowtail. So, and so we talked about all doing this, and we were at Democracy and all those sorts of things. And as time went on, and I came back the next day, and, well, does anybody have a song, some music? And I always did. And I said, well, here, I've been working on this. And this kind of happened repeatedly. In other words, Susie Q was starting to happen on the radio. I don't know if you've ever heard me tell this story, but you'll read about it in the book. I took stock of my situation. And one thing I could see for sure was, after Susie Q, what? If we don't do something, we're a one-hit wonder. We've waited all these years, worked our butts off, done all this stuff, and that's it. Because that spotlight, I even told the guy, the spotlight shines on you because you did something good, and then it keeps shining on you. If you do something good again, right. But if you do something that's not good, and we've all heard that, it's, oops, okay, next.
What have you done for me lately?
And not only have you not made it, it's worse. They know about you now. They know you're bad, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of thrown away. I didn't want that to happen. I was getting busier and busier writing songs. So when the first album was about ready to come out, we'd already recorded it. I went to the guys and said, look, this is kind of not right. I've written all these songs. I don't think it's fair that I put your name on my song. I said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll share the songwriting money equally. And we'll share the songwriting money for the first 4 albums until the end of 1969. Okay, okay, that's cool. I wanted to do that so no one would feel, what's the word, edgy about, because we were poor as church mice right then. And I didn't want to look like I was reaching in somebody else's pocket.
In your mind, this was fair.
Huh?
In your mind, this was fair.
Very, very fair, yeah. We were still all going to write songs, but on this record, I'd written all the songs, okay? Well, then the Proud Mary thing happened to me, and it's like you going from here to here. Mm-hmm. Again, nobody else ever came in with a song and said, well, I've written this song. And I got one here. It goes like this. Left a good job in the, And then, of course, I did Born on the Bayou and Bad Moon Rising and Sinister Purpose. And I was starting to get on a roll and starting to be very careful. The story about Proud Mary is I got very precious. We had recorded the backing track, and our background singing just wasn't good enough. And I'd been doing, harmonizing with myself since the 10th grade. I said, you know what? I know what to do. So they all left, and I finished the song the way you hear it. And then they weren't happy about it. They were angry at me about that. I'm hitting you with all this stuff so that you know.
Wait a minute. You put all these great songs together.
Yeah.
Born on a Bayou and what have you, and you're putting these great songs together.
Yeah.
And these gentlemen are making money off of those songs that you wrote. They didn't write
Absolutely.
them.
It was a 4-way split.
And they were angry?
Yeah,
Why didn't you call me?
Right. And I'm with
angry?
you, George. I mean, I realize, because sometimes, I'm asked the question, well, is there something you could have done differently? And I always go, well, I could have walked into our Hooley Records, Mm-hmm. As far as this stuff, I don't know. I mean, because I thought when I was making Proud Mary better, I was making it better for us, my team, my band, my guys, right? In fact, that night I made a speech to the guys. I said, look, it doesn't matter who of us does it. The point is, it's us against the world. We got to make the best record we can.
Yeah, you are a success. Regardless of what is the bottom line of pushing it, the act is a success.
Yes.
You've made it. You're there.
That's all that's all I cared about.
You're going to sit there and say, we made it to the World Series, but this guy had 50 home runs and I hit 8? No, you're going to say, we made it. We're there.
It's like counting what's the number 1 home run hitting brother act? that there is.
The errands.
Yes.
But the other
and
one,
Tommy had how
yeah.
many? 6 or something?
Yeah, they had 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I hear what you're saying, though. Once something works, I'm sure Ringo's not going to walk up and say, "Hey, man, this Eleanor Rigby stuff, I want a piece of the action."
Right.
Once you make it and you get there, it's a strange word you would use if they would be angry about that.
Well, they really were.
Well,
and
I
it
can't help you,
seemed,
John.
It seemed like, I'll give you just one more little tidbit of information. So after that first album, I thought, well, there's no more singles. I better write a new single. That became Bad Moon Rising, Lodi, because it just didn't seem like anything was strong enough to be that. So I was at home. I didn't go to any more of the pot smoking things. They sort of, I lost patience with that because it didn't seem to, what's the word, be efficient.
Yeah.
So instead, I went home and I wrote songs. And trust me, they weren't all good. Most of them stunk. And I was basically ratcheting up this thing to try and, be like Proud Mary. When we get to Green River, we were at Doug's place by then in a little shack outside of his house. In those days, at first it was called The Plant. And then after a few weeks, it was called The Factory.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the original factory. And one day we're working on Green River, and we end our rehearsal. We're coming out to our cars with our guitars to get in, and Tom says to me, "You're getting quite a repertoire." But I could tell by the look on his face and the way it kind of came out, almost hissing. It upset me. I drove home going, "What was that?" I mean, I literally didn't understand it, because why would it be negative? We're humans, we know when it happens. But I couldn't understand why. And probably for most of the rest of the Creedence career, that was kind of the dynamic, where stuff would happen and I'd have to kind of put my head down and go, well, if I just keep quiet, we can keep going. So we get to the end of 1970, and I've kind of been keeping the band at bay. No one has come in with a song or even arrangement of music. It just hasn't happened. That isn't what happened in history. I arrive at what we called the Factory, the one on Cosmo's Factory album cover, and we're going to rehearse, and I believe we're supposed to meet with some attorney as well. And the guys first, we want to have a meeting, and there's a certain sense of more tense than normal. And okay. And the guys laid it out to me. We want to write songs. We want to sing the songs. We want to have more say-so in the running of Creedence. Right? Oh, I have to go back to that beginning again, when we were all a democracy meeting at that place, smoking pot and all that. Saul Zaentz calls us to his house and tells us he has purchased Fantasy Records. This is October of '67, before we really got rolling. He tells us he's purchased Fantasy Records. Saul was the sales representative from the older days, prior days. And he says, "And I want to sign you guys." So we looked, and first thing out of our mouth is, "Can we change our name? We hate gollywogs," because the prior ownership had named us gollywogs, like a surprise deal. I won't go into all that. But anyway, in a few days, maybe a couple weeks, Saul gives me a copy of a contract. He says, "You guys look this thing over." So I take it back to the band. Stu's father is an attorney, a rather prominent attorney with a big law firm, entertainment law firm in the Bay Area. They represent the Oakland Raiders, among other clients. Actually, this probably won't mean much to you, but one time at Stu's house while we were rehearsing, Stu's dad came down and he had the singer Johnny Desmond under his wing. He's like a 50s kind of ballad kind of guy. So Stu's dad obviously represented that guy. And so we voted among the 4 guys in the band, well, Stu's dad's an attorney. We can't understand what this says. Here, Stu, you take this to your dad, have him look it over, tell us what to do, right? So a couple of weeks go by. Again, this is still late 67 or perhaps or very early 68. And it's a Friday afternoon. We're loading up the van with band equipment to go play some faraway gig somewhere. We're kind of passing each other with, guitars and drums and all that. Somebody just, "Hey, Stu!" And Stu says, "What?" "Well, what did your dad say?" Now we're all, we all know that the radar is tuned in. We're going, yeah. And Stu says, "What did Dad say about what?" "Well, what did he say about the contract?" And now it's like a pause, and then Stu says, "It's okay." And that wasn't enough for it. One of us says, "It's okay what?" And Stu says, "It's okay to sign." And we go, "Yay!" Because we want to be big rock and roll stars. I mean, we're happy. It's like, wow, Saul always seemed like the guy that wasn't crazy at Fantasy Records. More normal. He acted like our buddy and all that. So, sure, cool, okay. And that was that. And I guess something I want to stress, because a lot of you are older people, and some of you may have been through the legal machinery. Usually, when there's some kind of an offer for somebody, the other party sort of makes a counter offer. You negotiate here. You don't just go, "Sure, okay, Iran, we'll just sign this thing." No, you're supposed to. You're supposed to make a couple of points that you want to get in there.
The exuberance of youth.
But we didn't. I was really unsophisticated. I hadn't even been to school. Stu had been to business college because his dad made him do that. I'm only bringing this up because this was the days when we were a democracy. We end up signing a contract on January 5th, I think it was, of 68. And shortly after that, my brother Tom convinces us that we should sign Max from the old Fantasy ownership. Max was the crazy guy. He was the beatnik, that kind of thing, hipster. And Tom wants to sign Max as our manager because he's feeling remorse, I guess. He's feeling like Max got left behind. And I'm sitting there going, but, I hadn't even had that thought in my head. But Tom kind of convinces us. And so we sign, we actually have to approach him. "Hey, Max, you want to be our manager?" And by this time, we're starting to make a little more noise. But Max signs an agreement with us. A little later, about 9 months later, something like that, we had to undo that by buying our way out of that. In other words, that was a mistake because he really never did anything. And here's this guy that's now our manager. A lot of famous acts, Bruce Springsteen being one of them. They hit success, and there's some guy in their past who's waving a piece of paper and thinking millions upon millions. So I was starting to get a little uncomfortable with this democracy thing. It really hit the head in the summer of 68. Susie Q was out, Put a Spell on You was out, Creedence was on the radio, a pop hit, and we were starting to get some engagements, of course, and Tom accepted an engagement somewhere far, far, far lower fee than what we were worth. And we were all in the car, and Tom kind of mentioned it, and at that point, Tom was still sort of the business guy. He was older than us. He had kids. He had credit cards. He had a real job. I don't think the rest of, we'd had part-time things. And I just said, we can't have everybody being a voice and just, we got to have one voice here. I said, man, this is not right. And so at that point, I sort of pulled in the reins, just because my sense of where are we going down the road, try and make it a straight line, I guess. I'm not trying to defend myself. I'm trying to tell you the history of the band, I suppose. And of course, that was the way it looked to me. I didn't want any more of those people going off and telling some other, long-lost relative, yeah, we'll play for you for $20 and all the beer we can drink, We were Creedence Clearwater now. Anyway, so I had kept, from that time forward, through 69 and through most of 70, I had managed to make a lot of the decisions, although we usually voted on stuff, meaning there's too many but we always voted unanimously or it didn't fly. Mm-hmm. It was always a vote. It was never me going, that's what we're doing. It was always a vote. Okay. We get to the end of 1970 and the guys have confronted me and they've already been rumbling about these things. We want to sing the songs. We want to write our songs. We want to make our own arrangements. We want to run the band as a democracy, and I can see that they're really, really, really serious. It's upsetting to me, but I can also see that the only way forward, rather than everybody just walking out of the room and never saying hello again, was for me to say, okay. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I said. All right, okay, that's what we're going to do from now on. Then we went in then we went in the studio and recorded the album. I'm getting close to the end here now. Sorry. Recorded the album that's Pendulum. And the first thing the guys did that was different than what I would have done is they wanted to have a big press party and announce Pendulum and announce their newfound freedom right? And so most of the band spent the night at that, we flew in people for, critics and all that sort of thing from all over the country. The guys had hired a big PR firm and all that sort of thing. And I pretty much kept quiet, but they did a lot of talking. You can Google it all up now from those days, talking about how, well, it's no more a tyranny from John. We're going to write our songs, we're going to sing our songs, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. That was pretty much the mission from then on. Mm. So in the years since, you may have seen some of the fellas saying, well, John forced us to write songs. Now I'm talking about Mardi Gras, but I don't feel that that's the case. I feel that it was the other way around, if anything. Anyway, a few weeks after that, the album came out and the big press party, my brother Tom did a very remarkable thing. He left the band. And I have to say... After he got his
democracy, he leaves the band.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it'll make you... We were young, and I think, I think we could all say there's probably things we would do differently. It seems like they always ask me that question, but Tom left the band, and there was nothing I could do or say to convince him. He wouldn't speak to me personally. Our road manager, a guy we had known since about 1966, if not 67, Bruce Young, who was a really good guy, I would tell Bruce, go back and talk to Tom. Tell him, we'll take a vacation. We don't have to do anything Creedence. We'll just stop. We'll just kind of put it on, permanent hiatus for, I don't know, a year, 4 years, whatever. Tom can do whatever he wants, do it by himself. But he was very adamant he wanted to leave the band. And I have to say, certainly after I didn't have my own brother, that I'd had to lobby to get in the band in the first place, it was quite different for me. But anyway, I'm going to back up now to the sessions that became Pendulum. The band decided that instead of the old way where I would write a song and rehearse the band like crazy for 6 weeks until we were good enough to play that single like in 2 takes, they wanted to go in the studio like people they'd heard about in the newspaper, oh Lord, like the Grateful Dead. And so book a whole lot of time in the studio and just kind of be in the studio and stuff will happen. So we booked a month at Wally Hyder's, and during the daytime we'd be over there. We'd be jamming and play some blues and stuff. After a couple of days, maybe 3 days, I started to get antsy again because we were supposed to be writing songs there. We never wrote any songs that way. I would go home at night, say, well, you better get, it's kind of like what happened before. You better get busy or that whole month's going to go by and we'll be standing there with, nothing. So during this period of time, of course, I wrote the songs on that album. Some of them are not so good, but there's a couple of good songs. And one in particular, Have You Ever Seen the Rain, is... by the way, years later, in writing this book and researching, stuff, Stu actually said at some point, well, Have You Ever Seen the Rain was written right on the spot. Well, the thing Stu didn't know, and maybe still doesn't know, is Have You Ever Seen the Rain is about the band breaking up. Now, I don't think we'd sit around and write our own epitaph,
Yeah.
And so I wrote that at home, of course, and then came in and showed the fellas, and I got through it. I was pretty sad. I mean, it was just this, we'd had that meeting, of course, and I'd kind of been given my comeuppance, I suppose you call it, and there was just such an atmosphere. It just felt like something was really changing here. And there was a fella hanging around that was writing a book, supposedly about Creedence. It was sort of a tabloid kind of, it wasn't like great art. It was
Nothing like yours, of course.
Huh?
I said nothing like yours.
Well, I think I spent a little more time at it. This was more just a day to day. But he heard the song and immediately knew what it. He came over to me after, and he said, "John, really?" I mean, he got it. It was a really sad. That was a really sad time for me, and I guess I'll just leave it right there and play the song. That cool?
Well, at that time, when you did that, I myself and all of us who've been, listening to Creedence, we'd wait every 3 months for your next single.
Yeah.
Like you would a Marlon
Beatles.
Brando movie or something.
Yeah.
You wait. You said, "All right, what's the next one?" We were always hungry for more. So we were never aware that your band broke up.
Huh?
We were never aware of that to begin with. So I was in upstate New York doing some shows myself. I was just getting started playing acoustic act, and a friend of mine gets in the car and he puts on this record, a tape of this album, some of the greatest music I ever heard. And I said, "My God, what is that?" And he said, it's this music, check it out." And he showed me the cover. I said, "Blue Ridge Mountain Rangers, I've never heard of them. They're great. Who are they?" And this is the time when I didn't know your band had broke up yet. And then I looked at the cover, and I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys with cowboy hats and silhouette, and I said, "It's the same guy." And then he said, I flipped it over, and I said, "Holy smokes, it's John Fogerty." And the whole world flipped out, including me. I said, "Man, if McCartney's done it, now Fogerty's done it." And I listened to it and said, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 of your monster singles, musically speaking, I listened to it and said, "And this is one guy doing all this great stuff and these great songs?" And I just thought it was something like a side project of yours. I wasn't realized that the official Creedence thing was a breaking up thing. I was a side product of yours, which I really appreciate. Now, if you're interested in talking about that on an up note, because to me, you didn't lose a beat when you did that record.
Thank you for that. Anyhow, I'm going to play Have You Ever Seen the Rain?
Okay.
With that magic. Someone told me long ago there's a calm before the storm. I know it's been coming for some time.
Now, these cats in your band thought they could do as good as that.
Well, they were playing, that's
No,
it.
I mean writing-wise. I mean, they
Yeah.
thought they...
I mean, sometimes when I listen.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Because if I knew, I'd have done it myself. I'm saying outside of that, there's probably,
I should have called you. That's
4 or
right.
5 songwriters could even come close to doing things. I don't know what these people were thinking about. They smoke too much of that wacky tobacco. The brain, something wrong with the brain. Because a guy walks in with a song like that, and I'm going, well, why are we messing with this guy? And it's when the organ comes in, it's beautiful. It's like one chord. And
simple
you may or
is
may not
better,
know this, but I've made a few recordings myself.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'd get
Bad to the bone.
and I'd get with some cats and I'd say, you're doing this. One note, wah, because that's all. They'd be all over the place. Well, it's one note. It's all it needs.
Right.
Or one chord.
Yep.
So when I'd be listening to it, and that song in particular, when that organ comes in, one chord, it's perfect. It's like just the right thing at the right time. I said, why don't you guys slow down? It doesn't need anything more than that. It's beautiful. You're just accenting something that's already there on a different instrument. Because at that time, I had yet to hear any organ in any of your singles.
Yeah.
I hadn't anyway. You may have used them. But I heard that, and I said, this man knows what he's doing. What's with you people? I don't get this at all. You stumbled into a thing. Nobody questioned what Hank Williams did. They just did it.
Right.
He had a great
Right.
band. He's a great songwriter. And the Drifting Cowboys played Hank Williams stuff. And I agree with what you say. Sometimes when you have, 4 people making all the decisions, nothing gets done. And then someone has to step up and say, well, this is what we're going to do. Good, bad, or the ugly. This is what we're going to do because nothing's getting done anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
no one asked my opinion, but hey.
You mean a camel is a horse designed by committee?
Sometimes rule by committee doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, especially, well, anyway, why go down that road? I'll tell you what, there were times when I was hoping some producer would come and grab me and go, hey, we got these other guys. You don't have to do nothing but just, I'll do it.
Well,
but
you proved
that
it on
never
the
happened.
Blue Ridge Mountain Rangers.
Yeah.
You proved it there. I said, geez, this guy's, he's got the whole thing nailed down here.
You know what that was actually, too? It was sort of I just wanted to do, well, of course I love country music and I love those songs that are on that record, but I wanted to just go in and do something really fast, right? Playing all the instruments. Now face it, I didn't really play drums then. I mean, I hadn't practiced for years and years. I'd practiced for a month, maybe, or the fiddle or the banjo or anything. I just wanted to go in and do it really fast. I mean, you've probably heard me confess over the years, I don't think it's great. I'm not great. The songs are really great. Some of the arrangements are really neat. And of course, with real separate musicians, real musicians, could have been, mwah.
It still was, John.
It's not as bad as I sometimes remember it. I can see why you guys like it. When I hear it after not hearing it for 20 years, I go, oh, well, that isn't as bad as I thought it was.
You have to step away from
right?
it.
It's just that, and also I was feeling not very good then. I was not feeling good. The whole thing was kind of the band broke up.
Yeah.
My marriage had broken up. I was starting to get the idea that the other guys all got let go from their contract, but they were hanging on to me. And I was starting to see the enormous amount of records I was going to have to give them before I would ever be free of that label. Anyway, that's a long. Read the book. I've already suffered you through
it's
a
all
much.
in the book.
Well, I mean, I talked because I just wanted to give you a flavor of some of that dynamics. Let's see. Where are we going from here, George?
Let's check it out here. Yeah, there you go. There's some music. Well, let's get to the serious subject here.
Okay.
Let's get to the serious subject. Baseball.
There you go. Yes.
Something we equally know nothing about.
Oh, George is like an expert. He scares me. He knows every batting average of every guy, that even if he was only up for a cup of coffee.
Well, when I met this man, I remember when I was a kid, and I was very into that game as I am, and I would be like, that was the way I got all these things. I just naturally picked up all this stuff that kept happening. And everybody in my father said, man, all you just cram in your head with that useless information is never going to do you any good in life. You know, because you know all this stuff about guys like Junior Gilliam, and because you know things about Jim Davenport, you know, people like that. And I'd be like, well, I can't help it,
Mungo
Dad.
Van Lingo.
Exactly. Veda Pinson. I said, I can't help it. This stuff is, I'm absorbing it like a sponge. So I said, okay, I'll never get me anywhere. And then when I met him, he started a conversation. I couldn't get rid of the guy for 12 hours. And I said, aha!
Right.
The rewards of a wasted youth.
Well, we started that evening by going to a baseball game, and then we ended it sitting in my car, drinking beer, trading everything we knew about. You told me your Marty Robbins story, maybe more than once.
Yeah, sure. I usually do.
I mean, you know, it was that kind of thing. That was great, George.
It was.
Wonderful.
It was a lot of mutual things going there. You know, the musical things, his attitude about rock and roll in general, his feelings of, you know, he was kind of an Americanly guy, but I got past that. You know, I said, well, I'll be liberal. You know, it's okay. You know, DiMaggio played in American League. It's okay. But there was things that were flowing out of us that were very natural. You know, it'd be something like saying, well, what's your favorite Hank Williams song? And I'd go, well, this one. And then in the next breath would say, well, who do you think was better, Aaron or Clemente? You know, we'd go like that fast. We'd go like bang,
Remember
bang,
when we
like,
talked about
like a
deep
ping pong
feeling?
ball?
Remember we talked about Deep Feeling?
Yes, we did.
Chuck Berry?
Yeah, because
And you were almost right. For the best I've figured out, because it's the other side of School Day, Chuck Berry. One of my favorite.
Yeah, it's instrumental, slide guitar.
Well, he's actually, I believe he had purchased a pedal steel guitar.
Like that, yeah.
But it's, you know,
I
it's an
played
awesome
that song
record.
for so many people, and 100% of them that I played it for the first time, I said, take a guess who that is.
Right.
And they'd say, oh, it's Fleetwood Mac. And I'd
Yeah.
say, nope. And they'd say, oh, it's, I know who that is, you know. And they'd make on. I said, no, you're wrong. It's the Byrds. No, you're wrong. Yeah. And I'd say, who is it? I said, it's Chuck Berry. And they'd say, God, that's Chuck. And that was one of the first things we hit on. And I said, that's Chuck Berry doing that? Why is he doing that? And we both agreed, because he's a genius, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. And he liked country music, too, obviously.
Yeah, well, we covered a lot of ground in two subjects. That's, you know, John was, we were both at a time when we spent, for reasons unknown, a lot of time alone. So when we found each other, I said, man, I'm not going to let this guy go. You know, you're talking all the good stuff here. You know, and at that time, I was, you know, no kid. I said, this is the guy I should have met in study hall.
Yeah.
We would have had a lot of fun. Or when we got kicked out of gym class together, which happened to all of us.
Because we talk too much.
That's right. But I'm glad we did.
Yeah, well, that was amazing. You know, I can't sit around and talk all that stuff, but most people don't realize that Johnny Vandermeer pitched 2 no-hitters in a row, but the second one was at night. Maybe the first night game ever. It was under these really at Crosley Field in Cincinnati, right? And they had these like little flashlights that they were, and he's throwing, and what happened? And he walked the bases loaded in the ninth inning before he got out of it. Yeah.
What a great name. That could have been a rock and roll star's name.
There you go.
Johnny Vandermeer. That's a record that'll never be broken.
2 in a row, right?
They'll have to go 3 in a row to break it. Right. That'll never be happened. But anyway, you don't.
All right, but I digress. Sorry, folks.
We get on. This is standard with us. So let's take a look here. Why don't you just move on to go to the big one? When you, some people called it a comeback.
Sure, it was.
I didn't really look at it like that, because I had the record, your solo record, John Fogerty, which I got in about 75, 76, around that time, and I cherished it, as I did the Blue Ridge Rangers. So when this came out, and they said, it's John's big comeback, I said, comeback to me, he's never been gone. You have to go away to come back. I said, this is just another project by the man.
10 years without any hearing from me, and that's not gone?
A matter of if it took, so it took a few years. That's not a comeback.
So she didn't call you for 8 years. She still likes you.
It just came a little later. You know, I said, well, this is just another statement by John. I guarantee it's going to be good. You know, I picked up the thing, and I finally was so pleased that he put out a new record. This is the way I am, like I was when a kid. I picked up the thing, and I sat in my house, and I didn't play it for a month. Because
Why?
I'll tell you why. I was so thrilled that he made a record. That was good enough for me. I didn't even have to play the thing. So I played one song, and then I just listened to that for about 5 days. Because in those days, about that time, I heard no music that was turning me on. I heard nothing that was happening at that point. So I was savoring it, John. I was looking at it, and looking at it, and looking at it. You know, when you got a record when you were 14, you picked up, Revolver or Rubber Soul, and you stared at it, saying, wow, it's a new one. It's a new one. So I was like that. I was very thrilled. And I play a song, I say, that one's really good. I say, George, keep playing the record. I go, no! I'll take my time with this. There's only so much in the bottle of wine. I don't want to rush it. So that was my, if you want to talk about it, you should.
I'll just talk about it a little bit. I had of course made the first Blue Ridge Ranger album, playing all the parts, and then realized all the legal travails that you've all heard about, of course, and I determined that I should keep doing the one-man band thing, even though it was really painful and slow, but I couldn't figure out the legal stuff. All that, it was baloney to me, but it was real, and I couldn't figure it out. So I determined that I would commit myself to being a one-man band until I figured out some sort of sanctuary from the conditions, okay? I stayed at it for 10 years. Centerfield was the last album and the last music I made as a one-man band. I really don't ever want to do that again. But you may have noticed I dedicated the album to Gossamer Womp. It was a story I'd heard when I was a little kid. And basically, he sees a parade. He's trying to figure out what he wants to be. He sees a parade go by, and he gets fixated on the triangle player, right? And so Gossamer Womp decides he's going to be a triangle player. At first, it sounded like this, bing. But after practicing for only 10 years, it sounded like this, bing. And that seemed to me a fitting subject for me, because a lot of people would, even some of my own family, go, why are you practicing so much? It never changes, right? So that became the person that I had in mind when I finally delivered something that was, I guess, good enough.
And again, you used one note.
There you go.
That's all you had to do, one note.
One note's always better. Shall I play Centerfield? There you go. She was going to throw this at you, but I knew it dare not touch you. Dodgers. All right? Are you okay? They didn't win. They didn't win.
They didn't?
No, they didn't win. Mets won.
Only tonight.
If I say Chase Utley, what is... Now he knows what it feels like to feel the wrath of the room.
Exactly. Order luck and roll, guy, I'm done.
Thank you. What was I going to say about Centerfield? I think that's it.
This
I
is-
wanted to state to you, though, that, I think most of you have picked up on, I'm a very happy dude now. I'm a very happy guy. I met a beautiful girl somewhat after that song, but right around that time. Her name is Julie. And, it's amazing the healing power of love and also the focus and direction that you get from sharing life with somebody that you completely trust and completely respect and have total faith in. So I know I kind of went on with some of the drudgery. I was just trying to give you some of the flesh on the bones, I suppose. But, all right, George, let's move on. I'll keep this away from you for now.
You should, on a high note, and this should be before we get to the playing, whatever. This was really, really something, some kind of achievement to do what you did in the late '60s, early '70s with your smash hits. You must have either tied or were up there with the all-time greats, Elvis Presley and the Beatles, for so many singles that went gold. That you did that, regardless of what rewards you reaped from that. It's still an achievement that you did. And it was a fantastic one. And for you to come back, I'm trying to say come back, but for you to score from the start of Proud Mary, after you did, and hit a #1 with Centerfield was just a major rock and roll achievement. I mean, it was like when Mays won the MVP in '54. In 11 years, he did it in '65. That said, John Fogerty is still John Fogerty.
Thank you for that.
So
All right, so I'm going to get to one more little weird thing before we totally... Centerfield was oh, by the way, obviously I chose a baseball metaphor to name my song and my album. I called it a comeback. I sure thought it was. And if you guys don't, I hate to offend any those past or present.
if they were going to be offended, they'd be offended by now.
When I was a very little
we're
kid,
good.
we didn't have any West Coast teams, of course. And so, 4 or 5 years old, I had heard about Babe Ruth. And then a little later, I heard about Joe DiMaggio. And a little after that, I heard about Mickey Mantle, who was still playing, and the New York Yankees. So I kind of adopted, as far as in the big leagues, the New York Yankees. And it seemed to me those 3 guys I just named, they were all the center fielders for the team. And they were also the big, the A monkey, the big big bambino, the alpha dog, the whole thing. It seemed to be always the center fielder. He's the guy that hit all the home runs. He's the one everybody, that's a little kid's imagination sort of honing this deal. And so I grew up kind of with the thought that center field in Yankee Stadium must be kind of the center of the universe as far as baseball. And so I had tucked that away. And all those years later, when it was time for me to sort of, I've been through it, I've walked through the minefield, I'm coming out of here, I needed a symbol to myself. And that symbol to me was center field. That was what was behind that story.
You didn't pick second base like I would. It's center field is more up your alley.
Well, anyway, so the album came out, and of course there were a couple of controversies surrounding the release. Those of you that have one of the original albums with Zans Can't Dance on it, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I got sued for my new song, The Old Man Down the Road. Saul Zaentz contending that it was a direct copy of my older song, which he owned, Run Through the Jungle. Eventually, it went to trial. Now, I thought it was preposterous, but in America, you can sue anybody, meaning I can sue you for having black boots on today. And if I spend enough money with enough lawyers, it'll come to a courtroom because that's the way our system works. I would lose, whatever, but you can always make a lawsuit go forward if you spend enough money. finally, there was a trial in 1988, and Saul Zaentz actually got on the. I was there every day, of course, and I actually performed both songs in the courtroom. That was unusual. And Saul Zaentz finally got on the stand, after all this talking about other. He only showed up one time that day. And he got on the stand, and after a couple of other things that were said, my attorney asked him, well, Mr. Zaentz, isn't it true that this whole trial, this whole case, is just a vendetta that you have against, and he didn't even finish that line of talk. Isn't it just a vendetta against, and he says, it's an answer to a vendetta, like one of those movies, and you could literally see the steam coming out his ears, and his face got red, and he really altered, and I thought to myself, this is worth the price of admission. Yeah. Anyway, so then there's a little bit more small talk, and my attorney says, well, what made you decide to sue John anyway? And suddenly I hear some information. Somehow they'd kept this from me, or they had, there was some new stuff in here I didn't know about until I saw that guy say it. And he said, well, one day at my office, the bass player from Creedence, Doug Clifford. Now, you'd think the senile old son of a, right, would at least know the name of the bass player, Stu Cook, and the drummer, Doug Clifford, that has made him millions upon millions of dollars, but he didn't. He says, well, that bass player in Creedence, Doug Clifford, came to my office and played John's new record. He played Run Through the Jungle, and then he played John's new song, Old Man Down the Road, and he said, John is ripping off Creedence. You should sue him. And now I sat there taking this, I was like, huh? My ex-bandmate actually went to that guy, that crumb. You all know how I feel about him. So anyway, that was one of those new things that happened. I got to take this story a little further. I was having so much trouble moving forward writing songs. After that trial was over in the end of 1988, I ran into Bill Graham at the Bammies, February 1989, and I told him, I'm having trouble writing songs and producing and being active. He said, Bill, I got all this stuff with Saul Zaentz and Fantasy Records. Would you act as a mediator and help me try to figure all this stuff out? And Bill said, yeah, sure, okay. So I believe we had one meeting with me and Bill, Bill's sidekick, Nick Klanos, and Saul. But it was on my way to the second meeting in June of '89, driving, to Bill's house up in Marin County, and I hear this commercial on the radio for Shell Oil. And there's a cassette that you can get, and it's got a bunch of songs on it, Four Tops and some other people, and Proud Mary. And I go, what? I'm driving in. Actually, it was the first meeting. I have to take it back. It was before the first meeting. I'm driving in to see Saul. You have to understand, I hate collaborations. That's where they take your record and Joe Blow's record and some other, the Spiral Staircase and, all these, and they put them all together, and I just hated those for a band of our stature. Elvis never did anything like that. The Beatles never did anything like that, and I was very protective of Creedence in that same way. And also, I'm hearing this, it's like a few weeks after the Exxon Valdez disaster, where we all hated oil companies at that point. And here's an oil company using my song in collaboration with all these other artists. So after the meeting, of course, I didn't say anything about that, because I'm there to try and settle things. I go home and I ask my brother Bob, call everybody in the band and find out what's going on. Well, everybody acted ignorant for about 10 days. And finally, Doug confessed that, well, we sold our vote in the band. We sold our Creedence vote to Saul. I go, what? We sold our boat, the boat that we have as a band member, we sold it to Saul. Doug and Stu each got $30,000, 30 pieces of silver. I was really pissed off to hear it. Tom got a little more money, but they all did it. What it meant was the unanimous vote that we supposedly had was because we're a rock and roll band. We're not IBM, right? We're not a business. It meant that Saul now controlled my band. I was really angry about this. You know, I mean, it was like, that's the worst thing in a band. If you were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they ought to throw you out when they hear something like that, right? So then, a few months later, I hear that Stu wants to come and have a meeting with me. And it might have been as much as a year later, in 1990 or so. And Stu comes and sits down and he says, well, I've done some things to hurt you, and I want to apologize. Now, understand that Saul still has that boat and some of the other things that they've turned over to Saul, some of the other blasphemous things they've said about me in the paper. And so, you know, Stu's being contrite, but nothing's changing here. So I'm not necessarily feeling, let's all sing Kumbaya and hug, you know. I literally said to Stu, look, you go fix the things that you did to me that are still hurting me, and then I'm going to listen to you. Because I was mad. I really didn't want to talk about him being sorry. And then I said to him, Stu, how could you sell your boat to Saul? He's my worst enemy. He's our worst enemy. And Stu said, I got tired of them asking me what movie or, you know, what record one of our songs should be on. And then he says, I don't care about that. I don't care about the music. Just give me the money. Well, I excused myself. There wasn't much more to say. But those of you who have wondered down through the years why I did not perform with those guys at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's it right there in a nutshell. And I'm sorry to, you know, put an exclamation point on it, but if you presented me with that 100 more times, I would react exactly the same way every time.
Well, hopefully you won't.
But anyway, there you go. Now we're going to play those two songs, and you guys get to vote if you think that they're the same song.
They're both great. You got to hear this. This is where it's at, where this man stands in the world of rock. I was watching, Centerfield might have been out a week, maybe a week and a half, and I was watching a show of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on tour, and they're about 8 seconds before they're going on stage, and they're getting their thing together, all 5 or all 6 of them, standing in their circle, one on a guitar, and the song they were singing was The Old Man Down the Road. How cool is that?
Wow.
Did you ever see that?
No.
I thought, man, that says it all right there. You're Tom Petty. He's a guy from back east. He's had some records, you know, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. You may know of him, but that's how much respect they had for you. And that song was barely out. And I said, man, not only did they know it, they were nailing it. They must have listened to it 500 times already. Remember when you got a new one when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And you played it over and over
Sure, of
and
course I
over
did.
and over. Well, that's what they did. And they looked so young when they were doing it. I was proud.
Right. I'm proud now, too.
All
Come
right.
on. Thank you for that. I love you guys, by the way. I want you to know that. You know, I think you understand where I'm coming from there. I've been really lucky and blessed to have music, which I really, really love. Part of the book goes into, of course, my own problems, besides all that legal junk I just talked about. It took its toll on my psyche, you might say. Probably the easiest way to say this would be, imagine I was a young guy. I'd written these songs that had gone all over the world. They were known all over the world. You know, you could go into a little town basically in the Amazon jungle, you know, or off in the back streets of China or something, and people would know Proud Mary or Have You Ever Seen the Rain? To have that sort of global awareness, I guess. The way I try to picture it or present it so people could understand, because these are my children. Imagine if you were Walt Disney and you had invented Disneyland, and then one day somebody steals it from you, but yet you got to keep going to Disneyland. You got to keep showing up there. That's kind of how it felt. So there was certainly a long period there, it's all in the book, ladies and gentlemen, where I was not a pleasant guy. I started drinking a lot, certainly became alcoholic, did everything that alcoholics do. Happily for me, nowadays I can go with my wife to our date night once a week and have a glass of wine, and it doesn't mean I'm running off to the distillery to, give me more, give me, I'm kind of normal now. But there certainly was a time when so much of this just was painful, and I was a pain to be around. I mean, I don't enjoy talking about that, especially when I talk about Julie. Her voice, by the way, is in the book. And she has a bit to say about dealing with me. And, you can only imagine. And I'm pretty straight out and truthful about my own behavior, which I'm not proud of. But years later, I managed one day up in my little demo room in my house, getting ready for the album Revival, a really cool song came to me, and I finished it pretty much right there in that sitting, and I was so excited about it that I wanted to right away run to the other part of the house and show Julie this beautiful song, because I knew she would get it. But she wasn't home. She wasn't around. She was off, I think, with the kids doing something. So I went, which is my habit, I went running. And it's one of the few times I've actually gone jogging with tears in my eyes. About a month later, we were getting ready to record, and I was showing the band this song, and she walked into the place. I didn't know she was there for a little bit, and I was teaching and singing the song to the band, and then I kind of sensed that something was going on, and the minute I just knew, and I turned and after I saw Julie standing there, and she was bawling, and because she was getting it, she got it, she knew it, what it was. And after that, I had a hell of a time trying to sing and finish the song because she was now getting it straight from me. It's the first time she had heard the song.
Let's take a listen.
If I was a gambling man, never would have let you play your hand with a broken down cowboy like me. 'Cause you never can trust your luck. He's bad news in a pickup truck. The broken down cowboy like me. He's played every card he's got. Had a good hand, but he messed it up with that bum around, tumble down hard. Saddlebags full of pain, carries them around just like a middle name. A losing streak, waiting for dark. Oh, he'll string you along, sing you a lonesome song, but he'll wind up alone again. No matter how hard you try, never gonna let you get inside that tumble down, broken down heart. It's a tough riding rodeo. Mean hearts drew him long time ago. A broken down cowboy like me. But the way I feel about you wouldn't want that horse to hurt you too. A broken down cowboy like me. Oh, he'll string you along, sing you a lonesome song, but he'll wind up alone again. If I was a gambling man, never would have let you play that hand with a broken down cowboy like me. Oh man, thank you. Yeah, now there's a song that means something. I was so happy to be writing that song. Of course, I talk about it in the book a little bit. I think I said, it was me, the old me. And it's good to be looking in the rear view mirror at that guy.
Well, a while back, I ran into you in our neighborhood, which we share at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into John and Julie, and I turned around and I said, "Hey, John, how's it going, man?" And he said, "George, I'm happy. And I turned to his wife and I said, I waited for 25 years to hear him say that.
Oh, man, thank you. Yeah. Well, you all know it came from meeting Julie, of course, and I can't say enough about that, but I will. I mean, you know, I'm lucky. I'm the luckiest man in the whole world. And there's something I talk about, it's just part of me now, you know, if you run into me. I believe I had to go on that journey that I went through, all those twists and turns, that some of which weren't so pleasant. It's just there. It's part of the journey I had to go through to meet Julie. And I wouldn't be standing or sitting here now with Julie and this shit-eating grin on my face if I hadn't done the other stuff. You just, you know, it's all part of one life. You can't have one without the other. So I wouldn't want to make a detour because I probably wouldn't have met her. I wish it'd been a shortcut. That'd be okay. But, you know, it is, I mean, life is a mysterious thing. And I just, you know, I mean, every day I look at Julie and I'm just thank my lucky stars. And sometimes I sit around when the kids give me time to think about stuff like that. You know, I realize that it means more to me than all the records and all the, you know, gold stuff and the honors that you were talking about. When you know you have found that place and that person you're supposed to be with, and everything else is sort of lesser importance.
Well, you've got it, and I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
I mean,
I'm going to take the ball and run with it here. So we fell in love, Julie and I, and started having kids. Had one little boy in 1991, and then a year later, 53 weeks actually, had another little boy. And I used to call them my rambunctious boys because Julie, you know, as she says, they were tied in a knot. It was just like that, you know, day in and day out, these two little kids that made us so full of joy, so happy. And so I ended up writing a song inspired by those kids.
My, oh my, I'm a restless guy. Got a home everywhere I go. Well, I ain't good looking and I ain't so smart, but baby, I'm a sensitive guy. I ain't done everything there is to do, but a damn sure give it a try. I'm a looking for a big time booking with you. Well, come on, baby, let's go howling at the honky tonk moon. I'm a rambunctious boy, rambunctious boy. Oh my, I'm a restless guy. Got a home everywhere I go. I'm trouble on the run, heartbreaking son of a gun. Oh yeah, I'm a rambunctious boy.
Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, that's real tape, ladies and gentlemen. Family really plays a big part in my life, of course. And a little bit later on in our relationship, we had a beautiful little baby girl named Kelsey. And just about the moment she was born, you know, she certainly was a little infant. I made a promise to her, a vow. I hope, oh, there she is. The name of the song, of course, is I Will Walk With You. Okay.
Love you all my life, love you every day. No matter where you wander, no matter what you do, come what may, I will walk with you. I will walk with you and treasure every smile. No matter what the fashion, you'll always be my style. A pretty little princess, an angel dressed in blue. Come what may, I will walk with you. I will walk with you, even.
There. I wish we could have got to the part where Jerry Douglas starts playing, but oh well. He plays dobro, and he's my favorite musician in the whole world. Anyhow, I think that's the end of our, what do you call that? Our science project.
To be continued.
Yeah,
Probably the
okay. Now, I thought we were going to answer some questions from folks. Is that not correct? So, anybody got a question since, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. You were talking earlier about the period that you were writing so prolifically, but a lot of it stank. And I'm wondering what your internal barometer was for knowing what the hit singles were and what the album cuts were and what was not meant for human consumption.
What the history of what?
No, how you could tell sort of what the hits were and what the album cuts were and what you didn't want anyone else to hear.
You want to know how I knew?
Yeah.
Wow. And I did. You know? I mean, I couldn't tell you these days, so don't ask. Although if it says Taylor Swift, it's a hit. I don't know. There was some. What you're really asking is how'd you choose between a single and an album song, that sort of thing?
And then the songs that you just didn't want to release.
That's okay. That's a ball of wax here. If I wrote a really, really good song that was really tight, concise, said something that mattered, and said it well, you know, it was a well-crafted song, but you know, hit me like Bad Moon Rising, or Green River. It was really strong personally. I thought that was a single. You know, I thought that was the best we had anyway. And there were other songs that I just kind of felt were meant to be on an album. They were good, but there's sort of a different, what do you call it, category that, you know, if you got 12 songs or 14 songs, and they don't all have to be like hit you over the head, top 40, da-da-da. You know, other songs, for instance, Broken Down Cowboy. I mean, to me, that's a really meaningful song. I don't know if that's a hit record. You know, for whatever reasons. But I did certainly have that sense, at least what I wanted my band to do. Usually, the more rockin' and kind of dancing kind of tracks were the ones that I wanted to make a single out of. I have to admit, I felt that Heard It Through the Grapevine was sort of a really cool thing to keep on an album and not have it be a single, you know, officially, but it snuck out. And Cotton Fields was another one, totally surprised me. I love that song, I love that record, but it was never a single, at least that I know about, but it sure got played a lot. There were songs I wrote that were clinkers. I guess to try and wrap up your answer, I used to say in those days, for every song you hear about, I've written 10 others that stink, you know. And it would be, they wouldn't get finished. I'd start down the road, you know, and I'd have a verse, and it'd be about something interesting, and then the song would kind of do a left turn or something, and I couldn't figure it out. I'd try to wrestle with it and could not figure it out, and then finally I'd say, John, you got to close the book and move on to something else. That's what I did. Every once in a while, one of those, book closed songs came to life later. Are there any more questions? Yep.
I've seen both you guys play over the years.
You what?
I've seen both you guys play guitar over the years.
Yeah.
And you guys keep seeming to get better all the time. What inspires you guys for your next best thing of guitar playing?
What do we...
What inspires you for your next best playing of guitar? You guys just keep getting better.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, I practice. Do you practice?
No, rarely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I don't practice, baby. I just play.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm going to give you my real answer. I get up every morning before I take Kelsey to school, because that seems, right now at least with the book and all that, seems to be the best time that I can be alone and just play. And I want to there's a lot of things I want to be able to do that, certainly 15 or 20 years ago I could only dream about. And now a lot of those things I can do. And it may sound crazy, even at 70, to be, practicing and looking up the mountain at somebody like Brad Paisley or Brent Mason or Joe Satriani, to drop a name, But I think in the long run, what happens, it keeps me connected and it keeps me in it every single day. I never feel like, oh, I haven't thought about that. I don't even know anything about music anymore. It keeps me like fresh and paying attention to other people all the time. Any more? Yes, sir?
Congratulations on the book, John. It's a triumph and a revelation. I got 80% through it, and it's awesome. And I thought I knew a lot about you, but I'm still learning stuff about you.
Oh, thank you.
But I wanted to say that you mentioned in the book that you were working on a song from an album that's kind of like Brian Wilson had Smile. You had an album called Hoodoo that was kind of the mystery album.
Because it stinks.
Anyways, you said in the book that you were kind of revisiting one of those. I shouldn't use that word, but looking at.
It's all right. I'm not sensitive anymore.
Looking at that song again. On the Run is the one. Are you really going to kind of think of re-recording some of those songs?
There you go. Thank you. It was halfway a good song, way back then. And that's a perfect example of one I should have closed the book. I never got it really finished. There was some is it the sheriff? Who's going to come get me? How do I make it rhythmically right and the right words to fill in what it's here in my brain, but I never quite stated it. But yes, as recently as that chapter in the book, I had actually been thinking about that song for a couple of days, and like the little bridge, looking at the blackbirds sitting up on the line and all that kind of, it was kind of a cool tune. That's how it works. I mean, I don't wake up every day and then angst over stuff like that. But when it comes to you, especially now that it's not attached to a bunch of bad stuff. It's just, there, part of me. And I was literally thinking about it the day I was talking, into a tape recorder about the book, and that came up. So, I don't know that I would ever do a whole hoodoo. I mean, at my age, it seems like a weird project to be investing myself in. I think I should look forward and be happy and write about, and forward thinking. But those unfinished things do occur to me from time to time, yes.
John, how is George Thorogood not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
There you go. He said, why is George Thorogood not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Because they're stupid. That's why. Yeah, man.
Thank you.
I'll vote for you.
That's
Yeah,
all
man.
vote I need.
Hey, George, let's wrap it up.
All right.
Are you guys going to play?
Well, all right. I think maybe we ought to play something together. What's that? Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to turn this stage around, and John's going to come out and play some songs for you, so hang tight.
I do want to thank my friend George Thorogood here for leading the way through all this stuff and kind of making sense out of it all for you guys. Thank you guys for coming. Let's have some fun here.
Well, take me back down the cool water flow, y'all. Let me remember things I love. I put it together with catfish back, walking along the river road at night. Barefoot girls dancing in the moonlight. I could hear the bull brown calling me home. One day my rope still hanging to the tree, Lord, Lord. Love to keep my feet down the shallow water. Shoot like a dragonfly, get back to mother. Pick up a blade rock, skip it across the Green River. Well, Billy Joe, you took me over. Say you gonna find well be smoldering. And if you get lost, come on home to Green River. George Thorogood. Thank you all so much. Thank you, George Thorogood. Someone told me long ago there's a calm before the storm. I know, and it's been coming for some time. When it's over, so they say, it'll rain a sunny day. I know, it's shining down like water. Yesterday and days before, sun is cold, the rain is hot. I know, I've been that way for all my time. The forever haunted door, through the circle fast and slow. I know, and it can't stop. I wonder. A sunny day. Thank you. All right. Well, you've heard me talk about family, of course, and. My son Shane is here to play with me tonight. I did want you to know we had recorded, redone with both Shane and his brother Tyler. We did an old song of mine on the album, my most recent album called Wrote a Song for Everyone. We got to do the song Lodi, and we actually recorded the track at Abbey Road in London, so that was quite a big deal for us Fogertys. Anyway, Shane is here. Come on out here, Shane. Don't step on my cord. Now, Shane is a recent graduate of USC. And at the time he graduated, he had a 4.0. Oh! And so you know that old saying, the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. Well, let me tell you, this time it fell way over a mile away from this tree, that's for sure. Anyway, we're about to do this song for you right now. Come on. Lodi again. I rode in on a Greyhound. I'll be walking out if I go. Well, I was just a passing through. Must be 7 months or more. To ran out of time and money. It looks like they took my friend. Said, oh Lord, we're stuck in Lodi again. The man from the magazine said I was on my way. Was somewhere I lost connection. Ran out of song to play. Pay me the time and money. Looks like they took my brand. So, oh Lord, stuck in Lodi again. Oh, take it now, Shane. The man from the magazine said I was on my way. Was somewhere lost connection. Ran out of song to play. Came into town a one-night stand. Looked like my plan fell too. Oh Lord, stuck in Lodi again. Yeah, now if I only had $1 for every song I saw, every time the band would play, people sat there drunk. You know how to catch the next train way back to where I live. Oh Lord, stuck in Lodi again. I said, oh Lord, we're stuck in Lodi again. Thank you. How about that boy, huh? Come on. Sorry, I did it again. Yeah, he is. You're right. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. All right, are we good for this? I just started, huh? Early in the evening, we're just about supper time. Over by the courthouse, they're starting to unwind. Four kids on the corner, trying to bring you up. Well, he picks a tune out and he blows it on the heart. Down on the corner, out in the street. Well, and the poor boys are playing, bang a nickel, tap your feet. A rooster hit the washboard and people just gotta smile. Blink your thumbs at your face and it's so no more a while. Poor boy twang the rhythm out, holding Kalamazoo. Well, he goes into a dance, down Bazongazoo. Down on the corner, out in the street. Well, and the poor boys are playing, bang a nickel, tap your feet. All right. your feet. You don't need a penny just to hang around. But if you got a nickel, won't you lay your money down? Over on the corner, at a happy night, people come from all around to watch the magic boy. Down on the corner, out in the street, well, and the poor boys are playing, bang a nickel, take a one more game. Down on the corner, out in the street, well, and the poor boys are playing, bang a nickel, tap your feet, yeah. It won't be a long story. I'll just tell you that you're looking at that guitar and going, what is that? That's the one and only world's first and only plaid guitar. Guess who gave me that guitar? Why, Julie, of course. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day, and I never lost a minute of sleep and worry about the way things might have been. Big wheel and keep on turning, I'll never keep on born. Rolling, hey, rolling, rolling on the river. We'll clean a lot of place in Memphis, pump a lot of pain down New Orleans, and I never saw a good side of a city till I hit the ride on a riverboat queen. Big wheel and keep on turning, I'll never keep on born. Rolling, yeah, rolling, oh Lord, rolling on a river. Rolling, yeah, rolling, oh Lord, rolling on a river. Well, if you come down to the river, bet you're gonna find a place to live. You don't have to worry, 'cause you have no money. People on the river happy to give. A big wheel and keep on turning, I'll never keep on born. Rolling, hey, rolling, oh Lord, rolling on the river. I said rolling, well, rolling, all right.
God bless you all for singing along. Thank you. God bless you all for being here, too. It's so great to see all your happy, smiling faces singing along. You know, the whole reason I do this is for you guys. So there you go.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag, ooh, red, white, and blue. But when the band plays Hail to the Chief, ooh, they pour the cannon at you. It ain't me, I ain't no senator side. It ain't me, I ain't no barge anyone. Some folks are born silver spoon in hand, now don't they help themselves. But when the tax man come to the door, Lord, the house look like a rummage sale. It ain't me, I ain't no millionaire son. It ain't me, I ain't no barge anyone. Some folks in Harry die spending eyes. Ooh, they'll send you down the wall. But when you ask them, how much should we give? Well, they want to answer, more. It ain't me, ain't no military side. It ain't me, ain't no barge anyone. It ain't me. Ain't no senator side. It ain't me. I ain't no fortunate type. I ain't no fortunate type. I ain't no fortunate type. I ain't no fortunate son.
God bless y'all. Thank you all for coming. Sure appreciate seeing you all. Thank you. Thank my good friend George Thorogood, too. Thank you, folks. Good night.